Okay, it's 4:30, so I will call our meeting to order. And I first have an acknowledgement that the District of Tofino operates in the territory of the Q&amp First Nation. And notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. And notice to virtual attendees to sign up for the public comment and question period using the Q&A function in Zoom. Registered participants are required to enter their full names, residential address, and state the agenda item they wish to speak to. And I will move the approval of the location motion from the chair. And look for unanimous consent on that. So I move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino meeting procedure bylaw number 1229, 2016, as amended with December 2nd, 2025 committee of the whole meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcast on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at the Tla-o-qui-aht Sound Community Theatre, 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. And that will be carried if there is no objection. Seeing none, that is carried. And I'll also move the adoption of the agenda that the December 2nd, 2025 Committee of the Whole agenda be adopted. If there is no objections, that will be carried. That's carried. And we have some minutes to adopt by unanimous consent as well. And I will move that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held October 28th, 2025 be adopted. If there is no objections, that will be carried. Seeing none, that is carried. And we will move to public comment on agenda items. And 10 minutes total. Ms. Larson, is there anybody signed up for public comment?
Dear Chair Anderson, there currently isn't anyone signed up for public comment. However, we do have a member of the public in the audience virtually over Zoom. If you are in attendance virtually and you'd like to make a public comment, you can do so by signing up using the Q&A function. You just need to enter your name, residential address, and the agenda item you'd like to speak to. Calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. There are no comments at this time.
Thank you. And we have no delegations or correspondence, so we'll move to section 8. And we have the 2025 water system performance report. And presented by Mr. Turk.
Good afternoon, and council members of the Committee of the Whole. So I'll be providing a verbal report today reviewing how the district's water system functioned in 2025. I'll identify various successes and initiatives that staff made and touch on some plans or milestones moving into the future. So here's the overview of the presentation. So approach leading into 2025. An overview of our continual operational improvements, touch on consumption, rainfall, creek flow data, capital and operational projects, system repairs and preventative maintenance, and review some look ahead milestones. So moving into 2025, and due to the ongoing trade war and geopolitical challenges, there was anticipation of a high volume of domestic visitors to the West Coast. Combining this factor with drought and climate uncertainty, the team worked collaboratively to prepare operations accordingly, leading into the busier months. This included reviewing water utility management closely with the water conservation bylaw, which was recently amended in 2024, developing operational strategies on how to best mitigate risk to the district's water system or water supply, with all of these factors of uncertainty. Staff across divisions met early in the season with both Tourism Tofino and the Chamber of Commerce to collaborate on strategies surrounding water conservation and its impacts to the tourism industry to ensure transparent communication between public and private sectors. So I wanted to take a moment to kind of just reiterate and share a visual of the district's watershed and associated potable water distribution system. So the district receives its water from Wenatchee-Hilchuk, or Mears Island. There are four main sources broken out into two supply systems. The first system feeds the Bay Street Pump Station and Chlorination Station and consists of three creeks: Sharp Creek, Number One Creek, and Close Creek. The first two listed being the furthest away from Tofino and typically the higher producers, sustainably longer into the dry season. The second system has a large raw water storage reservoir fed by one creek, Kennard Creek. This system feeds into a water treatment and pump station at the end of Sharp Road. On the distribution side of these systems are broken out into a high pressure and low pressure zone, which is connected by a valve and pump station at the bottom of Industrial Way. So generally speaking, this year, district staff operated the water system similar to how its certified operators have ran the system historically, in order to ensure that the district meets and exceeds regulatory requirements with respect to water quality. There were, however, enhancements made to the operation of the overall system. Firstly, with managing levels of the osmosis raw water reservoir, ensuring that levels were optimized to always be spilling over the dam's spillway, as this reservoir is relied upon and is a major trigger in the water conservation bylaw and relied upon in the event of water shortages to supply water to the community. This meant relying more so on the Bay Street side of the system, which has three sources feeding into it, as opposed to one source on the osmosis side. Relying on the Industrial Way or interzonal pump station to fill distribution reservoirs on the low pressure side of the system. To accomplish this, staff would generally turn off the osmosis water treatment plant at the end of Sharp Road over the weekends this summer, allowing the osmosis raw water reservoir to replenish from its single source more efficiently. And the low pressure side of the system does have two 4.4 million liter reservoirs, which act as a storage buffer and allow sufficient redundancy with respect to reservoir filling, specifically more being used primarily for top-ups as opposed to full-on filling. Staff also adjusted and monitored fill cycle periods, and if required over the weekends, did have the ability to turn the treatment plant back on in the event that risk was identified. So 2025 marked maturity into the district's internal capabilities of regularly monitoring creek flow rates and building this into routine inspections of the watershed on Wenatchee-Hilchuk or Mears Island. This was completed by using the salt dilution flow testing method and recording manual flow meter readings at the Number One Creek on a more regular basis, which ensured that we are starting to build historical data flows that we do see. So as you can see on this graph, there have been swings in maximum day demand and average day demand of water consumption in Tofino over the years. I think a key piece of data to observe is the correlation in water demands to water conservation efforts. Our community historically responds very well to increases in conservation levels, as most recently demonstrated. And as you can see in the 2021 and 2023 with level 3 water conservation limits imposed, which were based on the 2016 water conservation bylaw limits. With new developments of 2024 and the commissioning activities in filling the wastewater treatment plant with potable water prior to introducing sewage, We did see water average day demands increase. However, in 2025, the demands did come back to similar or closer levels such as observed in 2022. So with that being said, on the last slide, with consumption, it's important to reflect on the rainfall data that we have over the last 3 dry seasons. On this curve, you can see that in 2023, from May until October, there's a major flat line in rainfall accumulation, with 2 larger rainfall events and 1 smaller one, and those events being late July and mid-August, supporting us in getting through the hump in that season. Alternatively, though, in 2024, which we were very fortunate, although starting the dry season with similar to 2023 or averaged cumulative rainfall, we did have larger rainfall events, which you can see in those spikes in the May to October section that kept our system sustainable through the season, regardless of consumption. A lot of data here, but I decided to share, with all of the construction project, hold on, mix myself up here, but I decided to share the rainfall data prior to sharing this slide. As you can see in this slide, 2024 and 2025 correlating to rainfall have produced very sufficient creek flow rates and high low flow rates in the creeks as a result. So there are some assumptions that we have made specifically on Close Creek, as we don't have a flow meter there just yet that actively records flow. Stay tuned to the Close Creek Mixing Vault project next year. And so we've based those values on the data in the water master plan, but the remaining data was collected and averaged over the course of the dry months from May till the end of September. So if we trend the totals, we can see that 2023, which the water master plan low flow data was based on, had the lowest daily recorded creek flow rates of 2,160 cubic meters a day, followed by increased low flow rates in 2024 and 2025, with 2024 being relatively similar to 2025. We are in 2025 now taking manual readings of the #1 flow meter assembly and starting to build historical data through that. We saw some definitely higher creek flow rates this year. So with all the construction projects taking place in Tofino since 2022, staff took time to focus on design and operational enhancements of the water system. So this year's water capital program saw the completion of a water main design upgrade project on Main Street and design of a mixing vault asset renewal project for the Close Creek junction. This is the intersection of all 3 sources on the Bay Street side of the system before the water is conveyed over to Tofino. On the operational side of things, utility operations staff replaced an aged and non-efficiently sized altitude valve at DL117, allowing for more efficient filling and discharge from this reservoir, as well as a renewal project to replace the meter and valving assembly at the bottom of the #1 creek water supply. Staff are also working with a consultant right now to complete a commercial water use audit on several of its higher users, which will lead to these users receiving strategies on how to be more efficient with their use of potable water. The same type of audit last occurred in 2017, and we plan on evolving this into an ongoing program. So staff also completed critical repairs early in 2025 to the #1 creek pipeline, which is an overland pipeline susceptible to failures from trees falling down in the winter storm months. With this repair, we were able to install a swivel type coupling, which will make future repairs easier to complete. As the asset management program matures, staff have also worked through annual valve inspection and preventative maintenance programs, scheduled and tracked water meter replacements, and completed several water service connection repairs, utilizing leak detection equipment where possible to try and detect them before reacting. So to close my verbal presentation out here, looking ahead, early next year, staff will be completing the commercial water use audit and we'll be moving into planning framework for a private water storage program, which we anticipate on having further details mid-2026. This program is a collaborative effort between the district's planning and engineering functions, or plan engineering as we sometimes refer to it internally. And will provide mechanisms to amend limits to growth policy and effectively reduce risk to water scarcity and future development within the community. Staff anticipate policies to come into effect later in 2026, early 2027, which will also complement upcoming amendments to the OCP, to the official community plan. In early 2026, staff are also planning to return to the committee with the intent of shortlisting options contained in the alternate water source feasibility study. Staff have had preliminary meetings with Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation staff and believe that we have enough information to come back with shortlist options and pass forward to council and the committee with respect to the watershed. Capital and operational projects identified in the first round of the financial plan will continue, with water-specific projects such as phase 1 of the Main Street water main replacement project between 3rd Street and 4th Street, and the Close Creek mixing vault project going into their construction phases. So with that, I can be available to answer any questions and listen to any discussion that the committee may have. Thank you for your time.
Super, great work. Questions from committee?
I just had a question through the chair, looking for clarity on one of the slides. I'm not sure understood correctly. I was looking at the average yearly uses, I think, going back to 2023, and it was Tofino, and then Long Beach. Is there a reason for the difference in those location measurements?
Yeah, so there's a weather, thank you through the chair. That's a very good question. There's a weather station in Tofino on Mears that has data available through the last 2 years. And previously the district would use a weather station at the Long Beach Airport.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. It's actually the last slide, I think, and it has to do with private, if you can go back here. So I get the language right, and it has to do with private storage of water and the policy, the framework coming out in 2026 and the policy potentially at the end of 2027. And my question would be, noting that, the limits to growth, pressure on the limits to growth policy, and noting, numerous folks require or want to develop their property sooner than that. Is it possible to expedite that? Is that something that is actually possible? And if council wanted to weigh in on that, making that a priority, or is that the time frame?
Through the chair, good question. Right now, that's a reasonable time frame that we believe with the information that we have at this time to enact it, but I think that's something that staff could take away and get back to council.
Thanks, Simon, and through the chair to Mayor Law. We are already doing this work on a one-off basis. We just don't have the policy framework. So we're not stopping development for folks that have that. So we've seen some systems come in, and then we're trying to get into a policy to make it clear for everybody, but it's not stopping us from doing it today. We're still trying to work through some of the details, and as I think I've said in the past, like working on the covenants for different types, when, who, how. So it is happening. It's just, I think, to Mr. Kirkland's point, it's the actual policy work is probably going to come after this next LTG update in January, and then sometime in between then and the next one. I don't know. Mr. Walsh, do you know anything about that?
And so in the meantime, we'll be working with these one-off examples using provincial code, using a lot of standards that exist already within the country to help guide us. ensure that whatever systems are piloted, for lack of a better term, are up to speed with best practice from a building code perspective.
Excellent. That answered my question. Thank you.
Councilor Seer.
Through the chair. Two questions, and I just want to first thank you for the updates over the summer. Those were very much valued and appreciated, just to keep us informed, and the pictures of the water spilling over the dam were very reassuring. Two questions. One, just a technical curious question around monitoring the saltwater dilution method. Could you explain that, please? I think I'm pretty clear on manual meter reading, but the saltwater dilution, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, thank you. I was hoping that could be a question coming through and through the chair. So essentially it's a probe, or like metal probes, or a sensor kind of kit, and you combine salt with distilled water, and then you dump that into the river upstream at a certain point, record distances, and then once we recognize how fast it takes the salt to get down the water or the waterway, then we can start to establish flow rates. We also put a staffing gauge which monitors actively the height of the water as well to create those comparables which go into the formulas to develop what the flow rate is. From a high level, without going too far into the weeds on it.
Great, thank you. I do appreciate it. And just to follow up, the alternate water source feasibility study on the slide, it noted a short list early 2026. It was my understanding that we had already had a short list, and that maybe I misunderstood that we had I think it was 8 in the beginning, and then we had shortlisted down, and if I remember correctly, it was about 3. And then there was going to be further detail based on those 3, or am I just imagining this?
Through the chair, kind of going back, it was the end of 2024 is when I came to council with the sources. There's a lot of conversation around the several sources, and I think that conversation did narrow down to what likely is going to be a shortlisted amount of, or the shortlisted sources. And then direction was to kind of go and have meetings and conversation with Tla-o-qui-aht as well prior to coming back. And further completing works.
Okay, so there are identified sources, and we'll be getting some more information about those particular shortlisted sources.
Through the chair, correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other further questions from committee? Councilor Sloman.
I just have a bit of a weird question, and I don't know if you'll have the answer. I was just wondering with the consideration of the upcoming collaboration between private and our infrastructure, would there be any consideration within that to have, if say a private developer doesn't have the space or availability to store their own water, if they could have some sort of co-op kind of, or some sort of agreement with another property owner to store water on their property, would that be considered in that at all?
Through the chair, I guess that's probably leaning a little bit more on the development side. I think that there may be, I'll start to answer it, and then lean to Mr. Rogers or Mr. Welsh, but that would probably be a conversation between private homeowners at this point, but.
Something related to that?
No, just from my hand.
Through the chair, that's not something we've come across yet, so I don't have a good answer for you at this moment.
Just final comment. You know what? I just want to say that when I look at the facts and the numbers related to consumption and management of our limited water source, I just want to say I think that staff are doing an exceptional job. It will reveal itself as it already over time. So thanks.
Particularly great improvements in the data collection. Well, to make some decisions. Yeah. Okay, if there are no further questions. Take your seat. I don't think we need a motion of that to receive a report or anything, so we will move on to question period. If there's anybody signed up on Zoom or.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. You do still have a member of the public in attendance via Zoom, so I'll now open the call for a question period. If you are in attendance and would like to ask a question, you can use so using the Q&A function. Just enter your name, residential address, and the agenda item you'd like to ask your question about. Calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the closed session. And I will move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91A and C of the Community Charter to discuss matters relating to 91A personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or other position appointed by the municipality. And section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. Second by Councillor Thomas, all in favor? Motion is carried.